Keren Flavell, and you're from townhallapp.io. How are you?
That's
Welcome.
right.
Welcome to PR Warrior.
Thanks, Trevor. Good to be here.
Keren, I want to really chat to you today because you've been working on this Townhall app for a little while, and it's a great engagement tool for organisations, non-profits, publishers, brands. When it's really hard to get engagement with people, this is a tool that brands can use. I want you to walk us through it today on what it looks like and what it is and what it does, and what can you tell us about it?
Sure. Well, it started about 3.5 years ago when we were doing social media strategy for governments, and we kept hearing the same problem over and over, is that people aren't engaging with our online surveys and consultations. So only hearing from the same squeaky wheels was something we were hearing again and again. So at the same time, we wanted to figure out how can we use social media more effectively. And if you're talking about a government engagement, you do not want to post a question on Facebook and and suffer the consequences of that. So we knew we had to make social media work more effectively. As well as that, you need to be able to collate the results and form meaning. All of this is not inbuilt into the Twitter or Facebook platforms.
Yeah.
So we originally developed it as a Facebook app. And the Facebook app was all integrated into Facebook and worked well for 2 going on 3 years. But we quickly started to hit limitations where not only some people were saying, well, we shouldn't have to be in Facebook to participate, which is fair enough.
Yep.
So we built a non-Facebook version, but also it needed to be mobile responsive. And the Facebook app environment is not ideal as a mobile responsive environment. So I headed over to Vietnam and rebuilt the tool using Ruby on Rails, totally separate from any social network, but still maintaining the bits that were working, which was have a single question that shares through social channels to increase the engagement. So all of our work has not only been focused on what customers have been saying they wanted in the platform, pre-moderation and all those sort of functionality, but also keeping it easier for the participant to have their say. So we sort of think that people should be able to have their say in about 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. And we were always inspired by online petitions. So people tended to vote in or add an email to a petition and share it with their friends. So could we get that same behaviour happening for organisations and government asking a question?
And of course, we've seen the rise of GetUp and those organisations that harness the people very quickly.
Yes.
and have an impact and have considerable influence, and we've seen governments back down on issues as a result, and things changed, and so when you get the power of the people behind you, that's what social media is today. So obviously the name Townhall, it shows that its beginnings is in the town hall and councils, and who is in your sights now for it? So obviously government authorities, government departments, councils, and all of that. This is for, and that's to get two-way interaction, which they need to be doing today. Probably, truth be told, always needed to be doing it, but it was pretty hard to scale before, and now you can scale it. Yeah. Can the app now be used by brands and publishers? I said at the start that I thought it could, but you might want to sort of put me on the straight and narrow on that.
Sure. Well, look, a lot of the time during the process of this, when we have talked to brands about it, they tended to be asking the what do you think about us kind of questions and wanting it to go into that sort of survey feedback tool. But we think that the town hall means something, that people come together and make a collective decision together. So the kind of brands that we'd encourage to use town hall are the ones that want more inclusiveness in their decision making around their future direction. Brands like Starbucks have been doing that for years, where they've created the ideas portals and things like that. So they're really getting the feedback from the customers. But the heaviest shift that we've just made is into the media space, because we've built the single question format as an embeddable. So that embeddable can now go on media sites. And this is really quite exciting because I think that news has a great potential to be this bridge across into that more involved citizen. You know, the articles and the news story is where we're informing ourselves around, you know, what's topical and the the hopefully unbiased dimension of it. But you know, it's right at that point where the placement of a question to do with opinions can be embedded, as well as that we capture the demographic information, the age, sex, location.
Yep.
And that means that we can create really good infographics or reports based on that feedback. So rather than just your typical poll that you just click a yes, no, maybe, this is actually asking your reasons, which has been a really great feature of Townhall right since when we first built it, was that when people vote, they add their reason and vote on previously added reasons. So you end up with the top 3 reasons. So that goes way above the normal poll, as well as that we put the demographic information. So we like to call it the poll on steroids.
And I think, so what it's doing, it's becoming obviously more interactive, but it's a content play as well. So at its rawest form, yes, for a government organisation, they can scout the opinions of people, and that can help in policy and decisions to do with the public. But, you know, as you just said, publishers, and let's face it, brands are publishers today as well. Brands have got their own audiences, etc., that they can use it to ask questions, to get to inform content. And that's been a classic PR play for many years. You know, in the olden days, we'd probably, you know, do some research and write articles from it, but the research cost an absolute fortune to do. And you know, often sometimes you need that robustness to say, you know, 1 in 3 Australians think this. You know, you need a certain sample size, of course. But for these quick polls to find out, take the mood of the people, I suppose, is really what we're talking. And that's always makes good content, isn't it? Because you can say, you know, we've gone out to, you know, we've got 500 responses back, and 80%, you know, aren't in favour of this issue, and that can be a great thing for publishers.
Exactly, and the market research industry is predicting itself that the future is single questions on the mobile. You know, so they're realising it's got to be right there and it's got to be really quick.
Yeah.
Now, the extra interesting part of that, the media play for us, is that we're allowing them to invite their advertisers to place a question, you know, in their content. So, you know, something like a medical service could ask, would you see a male gynecologist? So they can just go out there and ask one single question. The media publisher gets the revenue from it, and the advertiser gets that quick bit of information, because otherwise, you know, most brands and most organisations sort of say, oh my God, we've got to do another survey. Where do we start? How do we get the people signing up to it? You know, low response rates are really typical of your average survey.
But this also comes back down, and this is one thing that I probably beat the drum on a fair bit, but, you know, with the old school marketing is telling, you know, one story to as many people as possible, and if it's, you know, if that's the traditional PR way, but it's also, you know, when advertising, you're literally interrupting people to with your message around something that they're not interested in. And so really brands that are adapting today are building their own audiences through content, through social, through driving conversation, building a sense of community and collaboration with their customers and influencers as well, which is really important. And so if you are always building this audience, these are the sorts of things you can do. And it always fascinates me that people say, oh, we're doing a social media campaign. And okay, have you actually got a following? You know, like if you're building the following, and you're building that audience, and that this is just another tool to have greater engagement and more depth of connection with them. And I think that's what good marketing today is all about, and PR particularly is about building what I call the intensity of connection with the people who matter most to your business cause or issue if you're non-profit. So something like this is what I like about Townhall and the app, is that it allows you to have that interaction, that two-way conversation with people.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, we always encourage our clients is don't always just come out with the really important consultation that has to be the, you know, right authority and things like that. Put out some friendly ones, like what are the top 3 things you love living in this city for, or you know, sure, which team's going to win on the weekend. You know, it can be that softer stuff just to show, you know, show the power of what the collective voice means.
Yep.
Because that's the fun part.
Yes, I think that's always the dangerous of being too serious on things. And again, then you can create further conversation pieces, because if you find out, oh, well, our customer base thinks this, you know, what about, it could, you know, an ice cream manufacturer could be putting out, you know, which is your favourite, you know, of our brand, this or this, and you'll be told pretty quick smart, I would imagine. You know, for FMCG, there's probably, you know, I think once you go down that path of saying, hey, we want to engage with our audience at a deeper level through, you know, mobile and online web channels, that when you really look at it in creatively, you can do some really cool stuff. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's really getting over this mindset. And I agree, you know, in the past it has been hard to do some of that stuff. You're right, are we getting to enough people? Low response rates, gets clunky. So what I like about Townhall, and you know, you've taken me through it to have a look at it and how it works, kind of like in the back end, and it's very simple to use. But the other thing is, I think what you're doing now is you're adding all the elements together. So a report comes out at the end, or now the infographic, and to show the results graphically. So again, if you're a PR agency or you're a PR team internally and you want to put a report up the line, then you've got access to that sort of I was going to say equipment, that sort of service as well as part of the app.
Yeah, that's right. You want to make it a simple process so that people don't sort of get bogged down in that detail that they don't want to have to do. I mean, you know, it's the exciting part about this new play into media is that it's the ultimate native advertising tool, because it's there as a content play. It's there as a user engagement, a reader engagement tool. And, you know, the fact that it reports a send-off to the advertisers with the information from it, it just couldn't be simpler. So that's really the direction that we're focusing on. And also helping that even those government agencies and, you know, any one of our customers wanting to use the tool still has to get it out via social networks. They might have their own social networks and boosted posts, but if they can get it into the media section, that's like the public notice part of the newspapers, you know.
Yes, that's
on steroids, you know.
That's true. And again, it's the talking point. It's so hard to get talking points, get people talking, cut through, resonate, and this is made for, what is it? I keep referring to it. I've seen a couple of articles, so I can't 100% say it's accurate, but you know, humans now have got a less attention span than a goldfish, and a goldfish is notorious for having a pretty ordinary attention span. And I think it's the goldfish is around 9 seconds, and we're about 8.2, where we used to be about 12. So you know, this is made for today's click, the clicker, the mobile scanner, the people who are just skimming and they see this and they go, oh, bang, 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 and it's one. You recommend doing one question only at a time with one click, and allow people to add to the answers or the questions as well. Can you walk us through that, what it looks like and why you've done it this way?
Yeah. And this has all been designed in collaboration with our customer base, figuring out what will work. So it's taken a long time to get it looking this simple. So when people vote yes, no, or maybe, so that's one of the question formats, yes, no, maybe, they then said, tell us the reason why you voted or add your own. So they can go through and select other reasons that have been added, and they're only 60 characters, so it's nice and short. Or add their own, or add their own, and their reason then goes into that list, especially if it meets pre-moderation requirements. Goes into that list. So then the next people come and vote on that too. And that's how we end up with the top 3 reasons. It's a really popular function. But also we show the results. Now, last time you did your last 10 to 20 question survey, it's kind of like, thanks very much, screen, see you later. And you know nothing about how your view compares with others. You don't get a lot of return on investment as the person who took the time to fill out that survey.
Okay.
Whereas this took only a couple of seconds and then it looked amazing, and that's why we get a 50% share rate. So our average shares, social shares, is 50%. So that's got a lot to do with the simplicity, the enjoyable experience, but also the fact that we believe in questions that matter. So the whole "are we good, better, best" question probably isn't going to work that well on Townhall, because the whole point is give people something that actually they think is important enough to share with their networks.
And that's the thing, isn't it? That's that whole, if you can get that bit of a viral effect, and then that, you start with your own channels, but if you can boost it out through that, that's gold. And it's hard to do. It's hard to get people to share. So I would imagine that 50% share rate is pretty damn good.
We've been always overwhelmed by it, just right from the very first consultation. It's been shared so much. So we've got the yes, no, maybe question, also the multiple choice, which we call chooser. So you can pre-add your list of options, but also you can give the participant the chance to add their own to that list.
So does that continue to add? Do other people see that or not? They don't.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
Right. So it becomes this dynamic beast that it starts off with, 4 pre-populated options on multiple choice, and it might end up having another 5 or 6 on top.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes we've actually ended up with about 100 in that list, which gets a bit unwieldy, but it's happened. It just depends what it is. And yes, you probably want pre-moderation on if it's, if your audience is a little bit adventurous.
Of course. That's quite interesting. So have you got any sort of stats around that, you don't have to mention the client, or maybe the industry, but they've put it out through their channels and, they had an audience of, 3,000 on social, but then it ended up getting, spreading, and they got X amount of responses. Yes,
well, I do. We've got the C's, parents and something, P and CS Queensland. It's a parents group, or community group. They recently put out a question that has had 7,100 and something votes.
Wow.
It's about religion in schools, so obviously hot topic, controversial, but it's spread like wildfire.
So when you say votes, it's the multiple choice?
That one is multiple choice around how religion should be. So I think they had it fixed. They haven't added other people's reasons to that. But huge amount of votes.
Yeah, that's big. So what would they intend doing with that? Is that because that gives you good content then, doesn't it? For a blog post, for ongoing articles, for presentations down the track, for informing the choices that their policy maybe. It could go a number of ways, couldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're a member organisation, so what they're doing is representing the members, understanding what their needs are, their views are, and then, their entire organisation bases its activities on the results of these questions. They've raised ones around, food in canteens. There's been a new law about reducing sugar in canteens, so that got a great response. And it's really just a really effective way, and they've got a good social media presence, but it's such an effective way to get members having their say in what's going on.
So obviously they've got a database of their members, but the members have actually shared it out even broader, so potentially, So that's a great idea. And any sort of media publishers that are doing it to good effect to get more ideas for content?
Yeah, we did a project with Word Vietnam and on the rooftop bars, because I don't know if you've ever been to Ho Chi Minh City, but it's warm every day. So the rooftop bars are pretty popular. and they did a series of about 10 questions around what people's views are on the rooftop bars. Things like, should there be a reservation should there be a dress code, what music do you prefer, what's the best night to go, whole range of questions, and that ended up with the 2016 Rooftop Bar Report. And a great infographic.
Fantastic.
So that just went brilliantly.
Yeah, and so did they do the 10 questions all at once?
No, they put it out every few days.
Single.
Yeah,
but strategically they had this bigger plan of what they could do with it, and I love that, turning into a report. So a company could do that.
Absolutely.
A company could do that, or as much as a government department. So that again, that comes back to what we were talking about earlier, is that once you go down this path, you can start thinking a bit creatively. Obviously, you need audiences to get to in the first place. Obviously, you can boost things through Facebook now. It allows you to reach a very targeted, specific audience at not a lot of cost. So, there are, even if you haven't got a massive social media following, this can certainly help, build that following through some paid channels. Yeah,
and you can boost it to your target audience. As so many ways to get it out there. But the content itself's got to be interesting,
Of course. That's always going to be the case. It's and it's got to, and the challenge for all of us in communications world is to be better and better and getting better at that all the time. I'll finish with one last question, Keren. What about which do you find are the most engaged mediums if you have got that data? Is it is Facebook more engaged? Not so much on a numbers basis, more on a percentage, because obviously Facebook's a behemoth and Twitter's not. But do you get good traction from Twitter? Do you get good traction? Can you do it through Instagram somehow? Probably a little bit harder. But
actually, it's mostly LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook.
LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Yeah.
So, and it depends on the question and the group being out. So, Pro Bono Australia just did a few questions. They obviously shared it on LinkedIn because the LinkedIn shares were huge.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So that's shares. What about and I suppose shares equates to engagement as well, because people are sharing it after they've responded. So that's LinkedIn because that's the audience. Does Twitter really work, or is it just too fast for Twitter? It's just people in the headspace.
It works fine. I think that we need to. We've got a little bit of adjustment to do to make sure the images load automatically. Because if you put it on Facebook or LinkedIn, it automatically loads the image, which is a really key part of getting that engagement. Is having a strong image that's the call to action. So that's why I think Twitter hasn't worked quite as well. And also, I think there's just more space in LinkedIn and Facebook to get the call to action happening.
Yeah, I suppose so. And again, Facebook changes all the time as well. In terms of size and what we can and cannot do with it. So. Oh, good. Oh, that's great. So, I certainly, if a brand or an organisation is kind of interested in deepening the engagement with their constituents or their customers, this is a good way to at least trial it and see how you go. And so, townhallapp.io. What's the IO these days?
It's a bit of a startup fad.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Many of the .coms are gone.
What's the country? What's the country of origin for IO?
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't think it's one of the country. You know how they've got lots of domains now that don't have the I think IO was just one of the because that was the trend for the .lys. So I think IO was sort of trend of Alessio maybe start the whole trend. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Keren. Much appreciated.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.